Raj walked slowly through the airport. He held a small black bag and wore an old but clean shirt. His shoes were dusty, and his face looked tired but calm. People around him rushed by in suits and shiny shoes. No one noticed him. When Raj reached the gate, the airline staff looked at his ticket and paused. The young woman at the counter raised her eyebrow. "First class?" she asked with surprise. Raj nodded politely. "Yes, seat 1A. She scanned the ticket again, looked at Raj from head to toe, and then gave a fake smile. "Enjoy your flight, sir," she said, but her eyes said something else. As Raj entered the plane, the first-class cabin looked rich and shiny. Soft lights, big leather seats, people holding tablets and coffee. The air smelled of perfume and power. Raj quietly walked to seat 1A. He placed his bag under the seat and sat down. He didn't look at anyone. He just stared out the window, lost in thought. A woman sitting in 1B looked at him and frowned. She wore gold bracelets and expensive clothes. She whispered to the man next to her, "He must be in the wrong seat." The man laughed. Maybe he took the wrong turn. Raj heard them, but said nothing. A flight attendant, tall and well-dressed, walked up to Raj with a forced smile. Her voice was cold. "Excuse me, sir," she said. "This section is for first-class passengers only." Raj turned and looked at her. "Yes, I know," he replied calmly. She glanced at the ticket in his hand, then leaned in to take a better look. "May I see your boarding pass, please?" Raj handed it to her without a word. She looked at the ticket. It clearly said, "Seat 1A, first class." Her smile faded for a second, then returned quickly, tight and nervous. "Oh, I see," she said. "Please make yourself comfortable." But her tone was not friendly. The woman in 1B raised her eyebrows. "Are you sure that's correct?" she asked the flight attendant. "I mean, look at him." The flight attendant gave a weak laugh. "Well, sometimes strange things happen." Raj stayed silent. He had heard worse before. He had seen eyes like those many times. Eyes that judged by clothes, not character. Eyes that looked down on people who looked simple. The plane began to fill. More passengers walked in, giving Raj curious looks. A few even whispered. Some thought maybe he had won a contest. Others believed it was a mistake, but no one thought he belonged there. The engine started. The captain welcomed everyone. Raj closed his eyes for a moment. He breathed deeply. His mind was full of memories. This was not just a flight for him. It was something much more. He wasn't flying for fun or vacation. He was here for something big, something no one on this plane could imagine. The flight attendant walked down the aisle offering drinks. When she reached Raj, she looked unsure. "Would you like anything, sir?" she asked. Raj smiled gently. "Just water, please." She gave him the water without making eye contact. Then came another surprise. A man from economy class walked up. He looked nervous. "Sorry, sir, but I think you're in my seat," he said, holding a ticket. Raj stayed calm. "May I see it?" he asked. The man handed him the boarding pass. Raj looked at it and shook his head. "You have seat 1C. This is 1A." The man looked confused and turned to the flight attendant, who checked again. "Yes, sir, your seat is on the other side." The man left quietly, but the people around smiled with disbelief. Why did this man, Raj, deserve seat 1A? The woman in 1B gave a small laugh. "Maybe he's a secret millionaire," she said sarcastically. Raj turned and looked at her. His eyes were calm, deep, and full of a strange confidence. "I'm not a secret," he said softly. "Just quiet." She didn't know what to say. Raj reached down and opened his small bag. People around watched. What was he doing now? He pulled out a file. Inside was a paper with golden letters, a logo, and a signature. It was something important, something official. But he didn't show it to anyone. He just looked at it and smiled. The woman in 1B leaned slightly, trying to read it. but Raj placed it back in the bag. He looked out the window again, calm as ever. But one thing was now clear. This man, who they thought didn't belong, had a secret. And very soon, that secret was going to shake the entire airline. The plane flew high in the sky, cutting through clouds like a silver bird. Inside, the mood in first class was strange. Some people were still staring at Raj. Others were whispering quietly. Raj sat calmly in seat 1A. He looked peaceful, but inside his mind, many memories were waking up. The flight attendant came back to check on him. She still didn't trust that a man dressed so simply could really be sitting in first class. She looked at his face, then at his bag, then finally spoke. "Sir, I just want to make sure everything is correct. Can I see your ticket again?" Raj looked at her. He had already shown it once, but he didn't want to argue. Slowly, he pulled the ticket out and handed it to her. She looked at it closely this time. The name on the ticket, Mr. Raj Malhotra. Seat 1. At class. First class. Full fare paid. The attendant blinked twice. She didn't expect this. "Thank you, sir," she said, handing the ticket back. Her voice was softer now. But the woman in seat 1B still wasn't done. She leaned toward the attendant. "Can I ask something? Did he really pay for that seat? I mean, there must be some mistake, right?" The flight attendant didn't answer. She just walked away. Raj gave a little smile. He could feel all their eyes on him, but he was not angry. He had been judged many times before. This wasn't new. In the back of his mind, he remembered a voice from his past, his boss at the old airport job. "You? Sitting in first class. Keep dreaming, boy." He had kept dreaming. And now, here he was. The rich woman next to him asked directly, "What do you do, Mr. Raj, was it?" Raj looked at her. "I used to clean airports," he replied. She laughed out loud. "Really? You must be joking." Raj stayed quiet, but there was a sparkle in his eye, a fire that said, "Wait and watch." Another passenger, a businessman sitting across the aisle, leaned in. "If you really used to clean airports," he said, "then how are you sitting in the front row of a luxury airline?" Raj smiled. "Because I don't clean floors anymore," he said. "Now I buy companies." The businessman laughed, thinking it was a joke. But Raj wasn't joking. He slowly reached into his small bag again. This time, he pulled out a thin file, clean, white, and official-looking. He opened it carefully. Inside were 2 documents. One was his ticket. The other had something very few people in the world ever hold. It was a purchase agreement, a signed legal paper with stamps and signatures. On top was the name of the airline. And below, in bold letters, it said, "Majority stakeholder, Mr. Raj Malhotra." He looked at it for a second, then closed the file and placed it back in his bag. No one saw the second paper, but Raj didn't need them to. He was not here to show off. He was here for something more. Suddenly, the pilot's voice came over the speaker. "Good afternoon, dear passengers. We are now flying at 30,000 feet. Estimated arrival time is 2 hours. We hope you enjoy your journey." Just as the announcement ended, a soft ding was heard. The flight attendant came back. She looked nervous now. "Mr. Raj Malhotra?" she asked. Raj looked up. "The captain would like to speak with you for a moment, if you don't mind." Raj nodded and stood up. All eyes followed him as he walked toward the cockpit. The rich woman stared in shock. "Why does the captain want to speak to him?" she whispered to her neighbor. Raj walked calmly, like a man who had done this 100 times. When he reached the front, the captain stood waiting. He was tall, proud, and looked serious. But as soon as he saw Raj, his face changed. He smiled, offered his hand, and said, "Sir, it's an honor to have you on board. We just received the confirmation." Raj shook his hand. "Thank you, Captain." The captain continued, "The crew has been informed. Please let us know if you need anything. Welcome, once again." Raj nodded and turned back. As he walked down the aisle toward seat 1A, the passengers watched in silence. The same man they judged minutes ago, the same man they thought was in the wrong place, was now being treated like royalty. He sat back in his seat, calm, quiet, still wearing simple clothes. But now, the room felt different. People whispered less. The woman next to him looked away. The businessman across the aisle adjusted his tie nervously. No one laughed now, because deep inside, they all knew this was no ordinary man. And soon, they were going to find out exactly who he really was. Raj sat quietly in seat 1A. The plane moved smoothly through the clouds, but his thoughts were not in the sky. They were back in the past. As he looked out the window, his eyes did not see the clouds. They saw the dirty floors of an old airport, the place where his journey had started. Years ago, Raj was just a young man with big dreams, but an empty pocket. He had come to the city to find a better life. But life in the city was not easy. He didn't have any rich friends. He had no connections. All he had was a dream. He got a job as a cleaner at a local airport. Every day, he mopped floors, cleaned toilets, and collected trash. The work was hard, and the hours were long. People walked past him like he didn't exist. One day, a pilot accidentally dropped a file. Raj picked it up and handed it back. The pilot said, "Thanks, but people like you will never understand what's inside this file." Raj said nothing, but that moment stayed in his heart forever. He began to notice things: flight schedules, airline staff, how the airport worked. While others saw him as a cleaner, Raj saw the airport as a classroom. Every night after work, he read books about business, planes, and airlines. He used second-hand books and free Wi-Fi from a nearby cafe. He watched videos online and studied financial reports. He wrote notes in a small notebook that he always kept in his pocket. One night, his co-worker Ramesh saw him reading about aviation law. "Why are you reading this?" Ramesh laughed. "You think you'll own an airline one day." Raj smiled. "Maybe not today, but someday, yes." Ramesh shook his head. "Dreaming is free, but reality costs money, my friend." Raj didn't answer. He just kept reading. Time passed. Raj saved every rupee he could. He stopped eating out, never bought new clothes, and avoided anything extra. Slowly, he started investing in small things, first in local businesses, then in the stock market. He made mistakes. He lost money, but he never stopped learning. One day, he got a job as an assistant in a travel agency. It was a big step up. He learned how tickets were sold, how deals were made, how airlines earned money. Still, no one knew the truth. No one knew that Raj was not just working for a paycheck. He was building something. He started a small online business that helped people book flights at lower prices. At first, it didn't work. But after some months, people started using it. His customer service was honest, and his prices were fair. Slowly, his business grew. Soon, travel companies wanted to partner with him. Raj saved every bit of profit and reinvested it. He opened his own office. He hired people, some of whom had once laughed at him. Years later, when a small airline company faced a financial crisis, Raj saw an opportunity. While big investors walked away, Raj stepped in. He bought shares, quietly, smartly. He didn't tell the world. Last month, he became the majority shareholder of that very airline, and now he was flying in its first-class cabin. Not as a guest, not as a winner of some prize, but as the owner. Back in the plane, Raj took out his small notebook. It was old and torn, the pages yellow. On the first page was written, "One day I will fly first class, not for comfort, but for respect." He smiled and closed the book. The rich woman in 1B glanced at it and asked, "What's that?" Raj looked at her. "My past." She didn't know what he meant. A young flight attendant came by and quietly said, "Sir, I heard the news. Is it really true? You own the airline now." Raj nodded gently. "Yes." The young man's eyes widened. "I've never met someone like you." Raj patted his shoulder. "Then be someone like me." The flight attendant stood taller after that. Everyone in first class was quiet now. They didn't laugh. They didn't whisper. Some looked away. Some looked at Raj with new eyes. The same man they thought didn't belong here was now the man they all worked for. Raj took a deep breath and looked around. He didn't want revenge. He wanted change. And soon, the whole world was going to hear his message. The plane continued its smooth journey through the sky, but inside, the air felt heavy. Everyone in first class was now quiet. No more jokes, no more whispers, just silence. Raj sat in seat 1A, the same seat that people said he didn't deserve. But now, they knew the truth. He wasn't just a passenger. He was the owner of the airline. Still, Raj remained calm. He didn't show off. He didn't argue with anyone. He didn't raise his voice. But inside, something was building. He looked around and thought, maybe this is the right moment. He pressed the small button to call the flight attendant. The same woman who had questioned his seat earlier now came quickly. Her face was serious, almost nervous. "Yes, sir," she asked politely. Raj spoke in a soft voice. "Please inform the captain that I would like to make an announcement." She blinked. "An announcement, sir?" "Yes," Raj replied. "It's important." She nodded and walked toward the front. A few passengers noticed and whispered again. Moments later, the captain came out from the cockpit and walked down the aisle toward Raj. He bent down and said with respect, "You have full permission, sir. We'll turn on the speaker in just a moment." Raj stood up slowly. The passengers turned their heads. Many were surprised. Some were curious. A few looked nervous. The captain spoke into the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special message today from a very special guest. Please give your full attention." He handed the mic to Raj. Raj stood in the aisle, holding the small microphone. He took a deep breath. Then he began to speak. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raj Malhotra. Some of you already know me. Many of you don't." His voice was calm and clear. "I started my journey in this very airport, mopping floors, cleaning bathrooms, and taking out trash. Back then, no one looked at me. No one said thank you. They saw my uniform, not my heart." Some passengers lowered their eyes in shame. "But I want to thank those hard years," Raj continued, "because they taught me everything. Patience, respect, and hard work. I used to sleep hungry some nights. I used to walk instead of taking the bus. But I never stopped learning." He looked around the cabin. Some people now had tears in their eyes. "I worked day and night. I read books while others partied. I studied flights while others laughed at me. People said, 'You don't belong in first class.' And maybe they were right back then, but not anymore." He paused. "Today, I don't sit here because of luck. I sit here because I never gave up." He raised his voice just a little. "To those who judge people by clothes or by their seat number, I hope you learned something today. Dreams don't wear expensive shoes. Dreams wear courage." Now the entire plane was silent. Even passengers in economy were listening through the speakers. Raj's eyes turned to the flight attendants, to the crew who work hard every day, often without thanks. "You are the real backbone of this airline. From now on, you will be treated with more respect and fairness." The crew looked at each other in surprise. He looked toward the business passengers who had doubted him. "To those who mocked me earlier in this flight, don't worry. I hold no hate in my heart, but I do hope you think twice before judging someone next time." The rich woman in 1B looked down at her hands, ashamed. Raj smiled gently and finished. "Your story is not written by your job title. It is written by your actions, so be kind, be honest, and never laugh at someone who's still climbing the mountain, because one day they might own it. He handed the mic back to the captain. No one clapped. Not yet. But there was something more powerful in the air. Respect. Raj sat back in seat 1A. A little boy from economy class peeked through the curtain and whispered to his mother, "Mama, I want to be like him." The mother nodded, tears in her eyes. Me too. In that moment, Raj didn't just change how people saw him. He changed how they saw the world. And what no one knew was this. Raj's biggest move was still waiting. The airline was just the beginning. After Raj's powerful speech, the plane was silent. Not because people didn't care, but because they were still trying to understand what had just happened. Many passengers felt ashamed for judging him. Others felt inspired. A few were still in shock. Raj sat quietly in seat 1A again, like nothing had happened. He looked peaceful, but his mind was working fast. He reached into his bag again and took out a different file. It was marked Conf ID and Child in big red letters. Inside were documents that even the airline staff hadn't seen yet. Because what the passengers didn't know was this. Raj wasn't just the majority owner of the airline. He was about to change the entire airline industry. This flight, this moment, was part of a much bigger plan. Just 2 months ago, Raj had discovered something while studying the company's reports. The airline was losing money, not because of low ticket sales, but because of corruption and greedy middlemen. High-level managers were taking secret commissions. Cheap parts were used to save money. Staff weren't being paid fairly, and many passengers were treated poorly, especially in economy class. Raj had a choice. He could stay quiet and enjoy his new power, or he could do something bold. He chose the second option. Back in the plane, a senior manager of the airline, Mr. Thapar, was also flying in business class that day. He was one of the men who had once rejected Raj's application when he applied for an internship years ago. Mr. Thapar still didn't know Raj was now his boss. After Raj's speech, the manager looked uncomfortable. He whispered to another passenger, "Is he serious? A cleaner becoming the owner? No way. He probably bought a few shares and is acting big." Just then, a flight attendant walked over to Mr. Thapar. "Sir," she said politely, "Mr. Raj Malhotra would like to see you in the front cabin." Mr. Thapar frowned. "Why?" "It's important," the attendant replied. Reluctantly, he stood up and walked to the front. When he reached Raj, he forced a smile. "Ah, Mr. Malhotra. Very emotional speech. Nicely done." Raj looked up. "Sit down, Mr. Thapar." The tone was calm, but strong. The manager sat slowly. Raj opened the confidential file and placed 2 papers on the small table between them. "Do you remember this document?" Raj asked. Mr. Thapar looked. His face went pale. It was an internal report, one that had been hidden from the public. It showed proof that fake maintenance parts have been approved for use in some aircraft. "I had this reviewed by an independent team," Raj said. "It's true, isn't it?" Mr. Thapar's lips trembled. I don't know how this got." Raj stopped him with a single look. "Don't lie to me. I've worked on these planes. I've scrubbed their floors. I know what belongs and what doesn't." Mr. Thapar stayed quiet. Raj continued. "You used cheap parts to save money. You lied to inspectors. You risked people's lives for profit." Passengers nearby could feel the tension. Raj leaned in. "When we land, a team of lawyers and investigators will be waiting. You will step down, and you will answer every question they ask." Mr. Thapar stood up in anger. "You think you can destroy me?" Raj stood too, but calmly. "I don't have to destroy you," he said. "You did that to yourself." The manager stormed off, red in the face. Raj sat back down. His heart was beating fast, but his face remained calm. Because this was not just about one flight. This was about changing everything. Just then, the captain's voice came again through the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our descent soon. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." The flight was about to land. But for Raj, his real flight, the journey of transformation, was just taking off. He looked out the window. Below him, the city was shining like a map of golden lights. A city where he once slept on footpaths now welcomed him like a king. Something bigger was waiting, not just for Raj, but for everyone who had ever been told, "You don't belong." As the plane began its descent, the city lights below sparkled like stars. The passengers felt something strange in the air. It wasn't just the landing, it was change. Raj sat calmly, but inside, his heart was full. He had spoken his truth. He had taken a stand. And soon, the world would know who he truly was. The flight landed smoothly at Mumbai International Airport. The captain's voice came through the speaker one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mumbai." Today was not just a flight. It was history in the making. Some passengers clapped softly. Others looked at Raj with new respect. As the doors opened and people stood up, the rich woman in seat 1B turned to Raj. "I judged you. I was wrong," she said, with tears in her eyes. Raj gave her a gentle nod. Sometimes we all need reminders. He didn't smile to show victory. He smiled to show peace. Outside the plane, a surprise was waiting. A group of journalists stood behind the security line. Cameras flashed. Reporters held microphones. A few passengers looked confused. "What's going on?" someone whispered. A staff member replied, "He's the new owner of Skywings Airlines. The media just found out." Raj stepped out of the plane. The cameras started flashing wildly. Sir, is it true you were once a janitor?" one reporter shouted. "Are you now planning to shut down the airline?" another asked. Raj raised his hand gently. "I will answer all your questions," he said kindly, "but first, I have something more important to do." He walked past the cameras and stopped near the airport entrance. A group of cleaning staff were standing there, men and women in faded uniforms, tired from their shift. Some looked shocked to see Raj walking toward them. One old man whispered, "Isn't that the guy who used to work with us?" Raj walked up to them, looked each one in the eye, and said, "Thank you." The workers were confused. Raj pointed at the camera crews and said, "They want to take pictures of power, but you are the real power behind this place." He opened a small folder he had carried from the flight. Inside were documents, new contracts. "I'm starting a new program," Raj announced. "Every cleaning staff member will now receive health benefits, fair pay, and free evening education classes. Your uniforms will be new, your names will be respected, and your future will no longer be ignored." The workers were speechless. One woman covered her mouth and began to cry. Raj turned to the crowd of reporters and passengers behind him. "For years, we built a world where only the rich sat in comfort, while the poor stayed in silence. That world ends today." The cameras kept flashing. "But this is not just about business," he said. "It's about human dignity." Later that day in the company office, the board of directors sat nervously around a table. They had just learned that Raj now owned 65% of the company shares. He entered the room, calm and silent. One man stood up. "Mr. Raj, with respect, we don't understand what you're doing. You're firing top managers, giving raises to janitors, starting new employee programs. That's not how business works." Raj looked at him and replied, "No, sir, that's not how your business worked. Mine will be different." He paused, then added, "If you're here only for profits, you can leave. But if you're here for people, for purpose, and for a future that respects everyone, then sit. We have work to do." The room went quiet. Some people stood up and left. But others sat back down. Not out of fear, but out of hope. That night, the news channels were filled with Raj's story. Former airport cleaner now owns the airline. Raj Malhotra delivers emotional message to airline staff. The man who turned humiliation into power. People across the country cried watching the videos. A poor boy in a village whispered to his mother, "If he can do it, maybe I can too." In a hospital room, an old retired pilot wiped his tears and smiled. And somewhere in a small city, a young janitor looked up at the sky, thinking, "Maybe I do belong in first class someday." But Raj was not finished yet, because his biggest announcement was still waiting, and it would shake the whole nation. A week passed after the flight that changed everything. Raj Malhotra had become a national hero. News channels called him the man who rose from the floor to the sky. Social media was full of his story, his tears, his truth, his speech on the plane. But Raj stayed quiet. He didn't attend parties. He didn't wear gold watches or drive big cars. He spent his days visiting airports, meeting ground workers, and talking to flight crews. He listened more than he spoke. He hadn't forgotten where he came from. And he hadn't forgotten why he started all this. Because Raj had a promise to keep. A promise he made to himself when he used to mop floors at night. "If I ever get the power, I'll change the way people are treated. Forever." Now he had the power. And now, he was ready to use it. One morning, Skywings Airline invited the media for a big press conference. Everyone thought it was about money or new routes or new aircraft. But Raj had something very different to share. He stepped on the stage in a simple black suit. No tie, no fancy watch, just a small photo in his hand of his late mother. He placed the photo on the table and looked at the cameras. Then he began to speak. Years ago, a woman was told to sit in the back of the bus because she was poor. A man was told to leave school because he couldn't afford shoes. A boy, me, was told he didn't belong in first class because he smelled like sweat. He paused. The room was silent. But I'm not here to talk about pain. I'm here to end it. He took a deep breath and held up a folder. This is the official closure document of the current structure of Skywings Airlines. Gasps filled the room. But I'm not shutting down the airline, he said with a smile. I'm shutting down the old system. He continued. From today, the airline will run under a new name. Skyhope International. Big letters appeared on the screen behind him. Skyhope's symbol was not a plane or a crown. It was a pair of working hands with wings. Raj explained the changes. No first or economy class, just equal class. Everyone would have access to comfort. All workers, from janitors to pilots, would share in company profits. The company would start free training schools for poor youth to become engineers, pilots, and crew. Monthly flights would be offered for free to families who couldn't afford travel, for medical help, education, or family needs. No staff would be judged by uniform. Everyone's name would be printed on their badge, with Team Skyhope under it. Reporters asked, "How will you survive in a world of competition?" Raj smiled. "I'm not here to compete. I'm here to inspire. Let the others chase profits. We'll chase purpose. If we fly with dignity, the sky will always be ours." That evening, Raj returned to the same airport where it all began. He walked into the bathroom, where he once scrubbed tiles and cleaned toilets. He washed his hands in the same sink. Then he looked in the mirror and whispered, "You made it." But as he turned to leave, he saw a young cleaner standing nearby. The boy looked tired. His clothes were old, but his eyes were full of dreams. Raj walked up to him and said, "What's your name?" The boy replied, "Arjun." Raj shook his hand and said, "Arjun, I was once you, and you might be the next me." He handed him a card that said, "Skyhope Training Program, VIP entry." The boy froze. His eyes filled with tears. Raj smiled. "Now go wash your hands and dream bigger." Outside, a new plane stood on the runway. It was painted with bright blue wings and the words, "Everyone belongs in the sky," and in small letters near the door. in memory of those who were told they didn't belong. Raj Malhotra didn't just shut down an airline. He shut down shame. He shut down injustice. He shut down the idea that success wears suits and failure wears dust. He proved something to the world. You can't stop a dream whose heart beats with courage. And so the janitor who once cleaned planes became the man who cleaned the sky. Forever. 1 year later, the world had changed. Airports looked different now. The old signs of first class, priority passengers, and economy line were gone. In their place, one line stood with a simple sign above. Welcome, everyone. Raj Malhotra's vision had grown faster than anyone expected. Skyhope Airlines had become a global name, not because of its profits, but because of its values. People all over the world wanted to fly with them, not for luxury, but for dignity. One morning, Raj stood at a rooftop cafe overlooking Mumbai's airport. He was no longer just a businessman. He had become a symbol of change. Beside him sat a group of young trainees. They were from small villages, poor families, broken homes, but now they wore crisp uniforms that said, Skyhope Cadet Program. One girl spoke nervously. Sir, I used to think people like us could never dream of flying. Raj looked at her kindly. I used to clean the plane wheels, he said. Now I help steer them. Everyone laughed softly, but their eyes were shining. Raj continued, You don't need rich parents to dream big. You just need a reason and a chance. That same day, Skyhope launched a new flight program called Wings of Love. Each week, the airline would fly sick children from remote villages to big hospitals for free. Another program called Reunite helped workers in foreign countries return home after years without charging a single rupee. News anchors called it a new sky of kindness. But Raj didn't care for fame. He still wore simple clothes, still ate lunch with staff, still visited cleaning teams every weekend. When someone once asked, Why don't you hire a personal assistant? He smiled and replied, Why do I need someone to carry my bag when I've already carried my past? One evening, Raj returned to the school where he once studied, barefoot, hungry, and often ignored. Now, the school had a big gate, painted in blue and gold. Above it, a new name was written, Raj Malhotra Academy of Dreams. Inside, children were learning aviation, robotics, public speaking, and respect for every kind of job. Raj gave a short speech in the playground. I don't want you to become rich, he said. I want you to become right. Right in heart, right in work, right in treating others. He pointed at a janitor nearby and said, If you ever become big and you pass someone like him, don't forget to nod, smile, and say, Thank you. The children clapped loudly. As night fell, Raj returned home. It was not a palace, just a quiet apartment full of books and photos. He stood by the window, holding a small photo of his mother. Ma, he whispered, we did it. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. A message appeared. Dear sir, this is Arjun. I just passed my final pilot test. Thank you for believing in me. Raj smiled with pride. Arjun, the same young janitor he once met at the airport bathroom, was now ready to fly. He looked out at the stars, and in that moment, Raj knew he hadn't just built an airline. He had built a new world. A world where no one was told, you don't belong.